So again, I'll call for an approval of the agenda for December 6th. For tonight. You want to make a motion? Yeah. Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Geneva and a second by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then I will ask for an approval of the minutes for November 1st, 2023. A motion by Rich and a second by Geneva. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. We're gonna move on into staff reports, and we are actually gonna have Wichita Police Department first, because I understand they need to get to an event, so who's going first for Wichita PD?
I will, Officer Jensen.
My golf, yeah.
So if I need to repeat something, please just let me know. Wanted to start off, first of all, with statistics. For DAB 3, we are actually down in Part 1 violent crimes from last year, and we're down a decent amount, which is awesome. And I accredit that to all the officers, special units, and everything that jump on these things. We're able to find the offenders, get them arrested and in custody very quickly. So that's really, really good. And all the other crimes, we're slightly down in, not quite as far as the violent crimes, but we're still trending in the right direction. Wanted to let you guys know that the third week of January, the recruit class is going to be graduating and going into the FTO phase. And they graduate, I forget if it's a Friday or a Saturday, but that following Monday, we already have a class ready to go. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we get officers out to be able to fill the spots and have enough officers on the streets and everything like that. So we're very excited for that. My team has been working, obviously it's the holiday season, so we're doing Shop with a Cop this upcoming weekend. We have breakfast and Shop with a Cop at Shields, where we'll be taking around some teenagers, allowing them to buy things for themselves, for their family and things like that, to give them a Christmas that they might not otherwise have. And then that following day on Monday, we're doing with Walmart Shop with a Cop. We're going to be dressing up the carts and everything like that, allowing kids up to the ages of 14 to be able to shop for themselves and things like that, to get some presents. And then again, that following day on Tuesday, once again, Walmart at another location will be doing it as well. So we're really excited about that, to be able to help out these families. And then the last thing that I have is, obviously with the weather getting cold, just a reminder to not start your vehicles to warm them up and then go inside your house. I don't want any of you guys or any of your friends to suffer from, somebody stealing your vehicle because it's left unattended while it's warming up, which is a trend that happens every time it gets cold. So that is all the information that I have. Officer Berger.
Yeah, just to touch base, our team earlier this year held a golf tournament in June. And the proceeds of that golf tournament, we were going to have like our own version of Shop with a Cop, but it's going to be specifically with our team. So our team has identified at least 6 families outside of the traditional Shop with a Cop that we're going to go out and shop for and spend money on them so they can have a good Christmas. And then we will be having that December 18th. And then our team has also been focusing on retail crime and shoplifts. We actually have held 2 special assignments targeting repeat shoplifters. We have another assignment coming up to do that as well. So we actually met with some of the loss prevention with some of these retail businesses, and we've been informed that they're crime has been down about 5%, which is really good to hear. So, and that's pretty much all that I have for right now. So,
I think I caught most of that. You did? Mike Hoheisel was by far the best looking council member. I'm pretty sure I caught that.
Oh.
I apologize, officers. We are having some technical difficulties. We couldn't make you out all that well. I do know, I think you had mentioned something about, some needy families that you guys are doing some shopping for here, in the next couple of weeks. So that's always a plus. I'm glad to have you guys out in the community, looking out, just being proactive on a number of fronts. So I appreciate that. I don't know if you guys have any questions to ask, and maybe they can type in or send an email later, but yeah, we there's no parsing what you guys are saying. I apologize for that.
I do want to say, let me know if any of your families need Christmas decorations, because I have an abundance that we're giving away through the Great Holiday Decoration Exchange. So.
okay.
Absolutely. I typed in the messages, a couple of the things that we covered.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
See ya.
Any questions from the dad?
Not this time.
All right, let's move on. We have Wichita Fire in person. See if you can follow that.
I'm not gonna have the disadvantage, I hope. I hope I'm, you can make out what I'm saying. Thank you, Becca. For those of you that haven't seen me here previously, my name is Matt Bowen. I've been with Wichita Fire Department for 32 years. I'm a battalion chief. I run out of Firehouse 2 that is just south of Lincoln on Broadway at 1240 South Broadway. Last time I was here, Power BI wasn't working, so this is actually, you did top there September, October, November, as the district's broken down into what type of call we responded to and the numbers. District 3 is they're kind of in the middle there listed. Significant amount of fires those 3 months. Typically, I'll break it down in this month versus last month and the previous year, but our data with the CAD transition has been restricted a little bit. So, also, as we continue on, some of the news, back to Matt, she'll be able to show some of the pictures. We had a lot of fires recently. The recent snowstorm we had around Thanksgiving, we were really busy. This was South Waco, 1500 blocks South Waco. It was a 1.5 story with a basement. They found fire on the first floor, extinguished it, and had a heavy fire on the second floor and void spaces. Crews worked really hard, about 15, 20 minutes, and got it under control. Got a good, everything searched. It was a board up. We worked very closely with MABCD, and they're a great partnering agency to deal with the abandoned homes and ensuring they're boarded up, and if they become a public hazard, they'll either secure them, and each year they actually demolish, have contractors come in, demolish and take down these public hazards. So we're really thankful to be partnering with MABCD and the service they provide for us. Currently, we have 12 fire recruits in the academy out of 31st and Oliver. They're scheduled to hit their first day in the firehouses January 20. Most of those fire recruits came through our EMT Academy and then transitioned into the Fire Academy in October, I believe it was. So we're excited for them to make it out to the firehouses, and they'll be our newest members. Really exciting. I talked about it in September when I was here. Firehouse 22 at 2659 South Hydraulic. is getting 2 new apparatus, 1 new pumper, which is engine company number 22, and truck company 7, which I have some pictures later on with that. You'll be seeing. So we're really excited. Both the units currently there are the oldest in our fleet, so it makes sense. Here's some further pictures of this one was actually South Florida, and Crew did a phenomenal job there too. Go ahead. But yeah, we're super excited. Engine 22 at the top and truck company 7, can serve the south side and District 3 and the rest of our communities, for many, many years to come. We have 2 battalion chiefs, supervisor from the fire shop, and other staff up there, a couple captains, operations captains up there, and they're doing what we call final inspection. The build time on these rigs generally take about 4 months. They're hand built. You know, they obviously they have a process, but we're able to follow that process step by step. So we've been watching closely since August on these builds, going from the frame to every single part of it. Pierce is a recognized leader in the world for fire apparatus. We're really fortunate. We've been an exclusive Pierce fire truck purchaser since, I believe, around 2004. Our entire fleet, which makes it a lot easier for our fire shop and support, and they're consistent versus some of these smaller manufacturers that when I came on a job in 91, we had about 7 or 8 different manufacturers and the fire shop where they pulled every direction, trying to keep parts, keep all this big different fleet running. So we're very thankful and we're excited to get this Firehouse 22. Further along, I have some fire investigations information, but thank you for stopping. Becca knew I could stop there. A lot of fire safety messages and prevention messages in this handout provided by Chief O'Cady with our community risk reduction department. But one of the biggest things our risk reduction department, Chief O'Cady's and his team pushes, and all of operations fire personnel. Right now, with the grant for the 2 additional truck companies we received and put on in April, we have 500 operations personnel. It's closed before you doze, and this has some important facts for you and your family, your children, that can save your life. So as simple as closing a bedroom door when you sleep at night, it isolates, it compartments. You know, we have documented evidence, you know, for years and years that outside that bedroom door, you might have 2 or 3 other rooms completely burnt out, the hallway completely burnt out, the face of that door charred and burnt. Yet you open that door and go in there and it's like this room. Maybe a little bit of minimal smoke damage, but it keeps the toxins, the heat, smoke, carbon monoxide off of you. And we do targeted searches. You know, we search bedrooms or priority area, egress paths, priority area. We search everything, but if it's not on fire, if the room's not full of fire, we're gonna search it. So if you get nothing else out of my little talk tonight, close before you doze. We're here for you, and we're excited to serve the community and you, and this is, in my mind, the most important thing to take away from this. So fire investigations information is attached also. We recently had the opportunity to attend a Wichita Fire Department retirees meeting. Retirees and their spouses, they meet twice a week at 1301 South Broadway, and that's across the street from old Engine Company 6. It used to have, it's currently the Kansas Firefighters Museum, also has the fallen firefighters memorial there for the state. And it was really good. We had, I believe there's about 8 or 10 retirees, bunch of spouses. You know, these are the folks that made the sacrifices to get us to where we're at. You know, we honor and try to learn all we can from those before us. One of those, was retired Battalion Chief Bobby Wolf. He served the community for I believe about 32 years. Before he retired, went to Ark City, Kansas, and you know, it's pretty telling his legacy on this department, service to this community. They've had the family established a memorial fund in Bobby's name, and they've already received over 12,000 in donations. So we're really excited. So if you've never been to the Fire Museum, Kansas Firefighters Museum, old engine company, two stories. They used to have horses and horse-drawn pumper there. It is an amazing thing for our city. It is open 11 to 3 on Saturday, every Saturday. I'd encourage you to stop by. They're wonderful people, and it's some neat Wichita history. Again, I'm not going to go over all the safety messages there, but they have a lot of specific wintertime and holiday season safety messages attached to this. I have handouts back there. If you'd like one when you leave, you're welcome to grab one. I have nothing else. Is there any questions?
Questions from the DAB?
Yes, sir.
I have a question I'd like to offer you. Thank you. One of your gentlemen came to our HOA meeting last month. And he told us he would give us smoke detectors with the Red Cross. He's going to install them. Forgive me if I can't remember his name, but he was on his day off and came to talk to us. And I want you to know how much I appreciate that. My whole corporation does as well.
You bet. That is fantastic. And that's a service Chief O'Cades and his team in the community risk reduction does. All you have to do is contact either downtown, the fire department, or go by any one of your 22 firehouses. Right now we have 23. Unfortunately, the temporary station with the Amity Bridge that's opening up, unfortunately, we're going to see it go away after the first of the year. So we have 22 firehouses with plans to, and land being purchased and firehouses being designed for additional firehouses within the community. But stop anytime. These are your firehouses.
Any questions from the public? George?
So I always lock my door and shut it to keep the boogeyman out. So you're telling me this is another good reason to do it?
Yes, sir. It is. It is.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thank
Appreciate
you.
your
Folks,
work.
have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
All right, next we'll hear from the Wichita Public Library. We have Jamie. There's Jamie. Let's hear your report, Jamie.
There we go.
I know, what was your experience with the book bus last, oh, you weren't there, never mind. Has anybody had experience with the book bus so far? It's really neat. I gotta go inside it. It's a mobile book unit. I guess it has some dates here that they're gonna be doing some stops during, December. If you got kids, if you wanna go check it out yourself, grandkids, kids in the neighborhood, please go stop by and any of these locations, and it's pretty neat. It's really welcoming, and quite frankly, I don't think we do enough to society in general, not our library system, they do planning, but society in general, to just continue to make sure that kids are reading and they have access to materials that they really would enjoy, and keep them interested and keep their brains going. So that's about all I got, Jamie. I apologize.
I do know that they just finished their library card design contest. They are hoping to get some people to vote on the designs, particularly for kids and teens. Which you can do online at wichitalibrary.org/card design here. I will send this out in an email, so if you're like, I don't know how to find that. And then they're doing a lot of different stuff throughout the holiday break. So definitely check that out. You can do that online at their events. There's also some of it's gonna be listed in the Evolve magazines, and social media is always a great place to see everything that's happening at the libraries. Do you need anything else we want to cover? You want me to introduce Robin? Okay, we also have a new staff member at Walters. Robin is going to be there full-time working on community engagement, so she will be around quite a bit. She will probably be seen at DAB 3 quite a bit. So get to know Robin. She's gonna be a familiar face. Down here.
Thanks for joining me, Robin. Welcome to any DAB meeting, anything you want, just come in and chat with us, a lot of good people here.
Becca, can we get this information, or Jamie, can we get this information so I can share it out, certainly through the Urban League social media?
So the book bus information is a current post on library social media. It's been
Oh, it is?
reshared by the District 3 page a couple times.
Okay, very good.
The rest of it, I'm sure, is either on their social media or pretty easy to find, and we can absolutely send it out, so you can do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 4, which is our public agenda, and we have Ron Becker that is going to get up and speak on sub 2023-00046. And Ron, you'll have 3 minutes. Yes.
Before Ron starts speaking, we do need to do a quick reminder. Public hearings for this item already occurred, so we are not going to be opening up for public comment or questions, even from the DAB, after Ron speaks.
Hi, I'm Ron Becker. I'm with the South Area Neighborhood Association. Now, this is about the approval of two through streets from 47th to Fernwood. Our concern are the increased traffic that will impact the neighborhood that sits directly north of this proposed development, with their streets and the street will be connected to Fernwood. Fernwood has been a no-through street for nearly 40 years. About a block and a half long, and serves as the entry and exit to the entire neighborhood, which consists of 32 families and parking on it. The increased traffic will not only come from the proposed development, but also from the traffic that will divert through the development to avoid the traffic light at the intersection of 47th and Hydraulic when wanting to go northbound on Hydraulic. Traffic cutting through wouldn't be good for the development either. This was the case with the streets located on the south side of 47th Street, Turnpike over past Hydraulic. Traffic would divert onto these streets to avoid the traffic light. All those streets were closed to through traffic many years ago. Fernwood is a very short street to have such a large development connected to it. The last proposal for this property was to have no through streets to Fernwood. That proposal was denied, and we're glad that it was. They are now going to connect through streets to Fernwood. Knowing that this has been approved and will happen, we just wanted to share our concerns. We thank you for your time and for listening. Appreciate it. Give us some back.
Thank you, Ron. All right, next we move on to off agenda items. Is there anybody that wants to speak on off agenda? George?
Do I need to come up there?
Yes, if you'll come up here and you'll have 3 minutes.
33 minutes, I can do that.
3 minutes, George.
It just feels like 30.
I don't go on Facebook, I go on Nextdoor, and this was on Nextdoor lady from Meadowlark, maybe a couple blocks from Mike's house. I'm the president of Meadowlark, I'm on the animal board. someone on your board is president of WIN and on the animal board. And this just appalls me that this lady wrote this and nothing's been done. We've had a male pit bull along with pit bull puppies terrorizing the neighborhood since summer. They have killed other fur babies. They just got both of my neighbor's little dogs. They jumped the fence. They have chased people. They have tried to get my little miniature wiener dog 3 times, but all 3 times I have been outside, thank God. The neighbor behind me, their dogs were outside and those dogs were trying to get through the fence, but didn't because he came out in time. What is it going to take before the police or animal controls do something? I called all 3 times, other people have called, my neighbor called. We all called 911 and they said they were sending animal control out and no one shows up. I actually did flag down an officer going down the street and told him what was going on and what had happened and gave him the address to where the dogs live and keep getting our neighbor has it on video. While one of the dogs is killing the last one of the neighbor's dogs, the owner comes around the corner, just calls the dogs and leaves. Who does that? Why wouldn't you see if the fur babies were okay or have something checked? Take responsibility for what your fur babies have done. What's it a police dog when it's a police dog, you want to lock up the person up? Why not hold the owner responsible for the dog killing other fur babies and putting them in jail? So I just don't get why this is happening since the summer. Do we need to give them $5,000 and a 13% pay increase? Would that help? I mean, what are we doing? I'm on the animal board. I'm sickened by this. They're killing dogs because animal services won't do anything. Doesn't make any sense. So I'm hoping that Becca can start maybe looking at some stuff in District 3, because District 3's got to do better. We can't have this going on in District 3. Maybe if she looks at next door and can interface, because obviously this lady isn't calling anyone. But so that's my concern.
Can you shoot me a screenshot of that?
Yeah, I already got it. Okay. Not tonight, I think before, so. But I'll send it again.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you, George.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna move on to new business. Agenda item number 6 is ZON 2023-00066. And we have Scott. It's gonna come up and present this case.
Well, hello, everyone. Scott Wade from the Planning Department. Good to see you all. Is the applicant for this case here? Okay, well, we're just gonna go ahead and roll right along, and I'll answer the questions about the project as best I can. So, Becca, if we could, so I'm gonna go ahead and stand up here next to the screen. Does that work for everybody?
That's where you're supposed to stand.
Oh, yeah,
Bob.
okay, I guess that is the cue, huh? All right, so, in this case, what's happening is this property is on TF3. They want to rezone it to MF 29 because they want to have, multiple dwelling units at that property. Now, Becca, if we could, well, actually, let's stay here for just a second. So this is at near the intersection of OC and Santa Fe. So if we could go to the end and we can kind of see, not the exact end, but just the right there, the graphics. Let's go one up. So this is a graphic that was submitted by the applicant as part of the application. It shows the property, just the outline of the property and what they would like to rezone, which is the whole property. Becca, if we can go to the next page, please. This is the map out of the South Central Neighborhood Plan. There's a variety of different colors. If we can scroll down just a little bit more, we can see the legend. So here's the legend. It's the arrows pointing to the subject site, which is the application area. And it's showing institutional. Well, it's showing institutional because when we get to the photos, you're going to see that this is a former church. This is an old church site. So if we could scroll down to the next page, please. So here's the aerial photo. Again, OC running east and west, Santa Fe, north and south. This is the property. You can see it's kind of interesting. It's like Oklahoma turned upside down because there's this little panhandle here. But let's go ahead and scroll down some more. It's a church site. It's zone TF3, which is a yellow color. The white is single family SF5. The kind of purple color is industrial, it's limited industrial. So you can see that it's across an alleyway from industrial. It's nearby TF3 and it's touching SF5 and across the street from SF5. Doing good so far? Okay, let's go to the next page then. This is from the comprehensive plan. We look to this because the comprehensive plan is a map that illustrates what future land usage should take place in certain areas, just like the South Central Neighborhood Plan, only this is for the whole city. We do rely on the neighborhood plans to give us more detailed information and usually more up-to-date, more recent information, but just so you know, the comp plan identifies this as residential. And it's a very broad brush kind of recommendation, because it's the comp plans at a higher level. Next slide. Here are photos, so you can see it, it's this red brick building, and these are different pictures from different perspectives. This is looking at properties nearby. We can scroll down some more. And scroll down some more. So it looks like it's boarded up in a couple places. I went on Google Street View just a few minutes ago, and you can see a for sale sign that was out in right of way on it. So that is that's the photos. We can go back up to the start of the report. We'll just go through the report real briefly here. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down to the next page. So it is, the subject site is 0.35 acres, so it's less than half an acre. The size of it's important because, in just a bit, we'll talk about this. So it's developed with it just slightly over 1,000 square foot vacant building. So they would like to have it rezoned to MF 29. MF 29 allows a maximum density of 29 dwelling units per acre. Now, given the size, which we just talked about, they could have up to 10 dwelling units on the site. The site plan provided by the applicant does not indicate where the parking spaces would go. The zoning code requires 1.25 parking stalls per an efficiency. And for a single bedroom, it's a 1.75. So for a single bedroom unit, it's 1.75. Now, they could come in and apply for a reduction in the required parking amount, but that is what's required per the zoning code. There's processes they can apply for a reduction in the required parking, but that's a separate process. The site plan also does not show the landscaping, and nor does it show the screening. So these two paragraphs, those would be required. The screening would be required where it butts up against TF3 or SF5, which is pretty much everything that it backs up to. And then if we scroll down just a little bit further, then we see a paragraph describing what we've gone over with the graphics in terms of the maps and the photos. We can scroll down a little bit further. Public services, pretty much all of them are offered in this area. And then we get to the analysis of the comprehensive plan. So we find that it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. With the South Central Neighborhood Plan, we find that it's in partial conformance because we really think that that the applicant is, here we go, the applicant is converting an existing structure into multifamily, which will continue the character of the neighborhood, which is mixed residential in terms of types of dwelling units. Additionally, the property will be subject to screening, landscaping, and compatibility standards to mitigate potential negative impacts. However, it's not entirely consistent because, again, we see that recommendation from the land use guide for institutional, which was reflective of the former church. If we scroll down a little bit more, we've got the places for people plan, which really is recommending pedestrian-friendly walkable areas and a variety of housing units. And we find that it's in conformance with that. So our recommendation is that it be approved. Now, with every zoning case, they're the golden factors, and these are based on Kansas court law, so a court case that has been decided, I believe, by the Kansas Supreme Court. And so these factors are what a case is determined on. So in terms of zoning uses and character of the neighborhood, it's just a factual statement about what's there and what's around it. Suitability of the property for which it's already been restricted. So the current zoning, is it a viable property? And yes, it's TF3, it could remain that way, and you could build a duplex or a single family house on there. 3, extent to which removal of restrictions would detrimentally affect nearby properties. Well, we've talked about the screening and landscaping that would be required to help mitigate any issues between multifamily and nearby TF3 or single family. Number 4, length of time property's been vacant, lot hasn't been vacant, and in looking at the aerials, it appears like it was developed, it's been a place of worship since at least 1965. I would venture to guess maybe even longer, but that's what we could see as far back as we could see. 5, gain to the public health, safety, and welfare as compared to loss in value. If it is denied or approved, we found our statement there is that there could be economic gain if it's approved. If it's denied, could be a loss of economic opportunity for the applicant. Number 6, is it in conformance with the comprehensive plan? And we went through the comprehensive plan and the neighborhood plan earlier. Number 7, impact of the development on community facilities. So we don't anticipate that it would have a significant impact on the facilities that are offered and available. And number 8, opposition or support. At the time that we put the staff report together, we had not received any comments on the case. So with that, that's the staff presentation. I'll stand for any questions.
Is there any questions from the DAB?
Pretty efficient.
Any questions from the public? Yes, ma'am.
As these people who are building this home, is it gonna be affordable? I think that should be one of the questions. Is it gonna be set up for affordable? Housing? Because we've got a lot of building going around this community and none of them are.
Well, and I'll tell you, the standard approach with zoning is to talk about what the property can be used for. Unfortunately, applicant and their agent's not here to answer that question, but we can certainly take that question. And if you like, I'd be more than happy to inform the applicant of the question that's been received. And if you give me, if I can get your contact info, then we can get you in touch with them. I don't have the answer. Other than,
Yes, ma'am.
Did I understand 29 unit on your small properties?
Well, MF 29 is the zoning district. That's the name of the district. It would allow, in this instance, because of it's based on the size and acreage of the property. In this instance, it would only allow 10 units on the property.
And then
And
would there be enough space for off-street parking at the same time?
It depends, because they would be required to provide the parking at a ratio of, I think it was at least 1.25 spaces per, if it was a studio, like apartment. And so that's gonna cut down on the amount of land that they can use. So we haven't run the numbers, but by the time you put in the parking, you may not be able to get up to the 10. I don't know without running the numbers, but they're limited to 10 at the most, but the parking may require enough space, so much space, they won't be able to go up to 10.
Okay.
Any other questions from the public? Richard?
Since how the people that's wanting to do this aren't here to answer questions, my vote is no. That's all I got.
Thank you, Richard. All right. Scott, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
We get the vote now?
Oh, sorry, George. All right, we're gonna move on to agenda item, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, bring it back to the DAB for action.
Discussion. Discussion.
Yeah. Discussion, action. Discussion is part of action.
I mean, let's go much laid out here. It states that, is there a conditional use on this?
No, I'm not aware that there is one. It simply says for rezoning. And the prior, in the staff report for the prior case history, there's no other zoning action associated with the property.
Well, without a conditional use, how can we say that
they're going to have things like fencing and these other.
Sure, these are, the fencing, so the screening, which typically is a wooden fence is typically what they put in. That's required in the zoning code in a different section of the zoning code, regardless of the zoning district in many instances. So, screening and the landscaping both apply.
And the idea of concentrating people under the places for people planned, here it's an area of opportunity, right? So there's but there's a lack of walkable places and facilities. So is the idea with places of people that will shoehorn as many people into an area. And then eventually there'll be like a critical mass where someone say, hey, it makes sense now to open up a grocery store. Is that the idea?
No, I think that's a mischaracterization of it. And I find the places for people plan personally to be a little bit frustrating, and we're looking as a department about how we can better describe what the places for people plan is recommending in our staff reports, because I don't think we're doing a real great job of that. But if I was, in my description of what the places for people plan is recommending, it's recommending reinvestment in existing neighborhoods. And the way to do that is saying, do it in a walkable fashion, do it with a variety of different housing units, because we know that if we build a neighborhood with only one type of housing unit, it's not gonna be a place where you can raise a family, or you can be single, and then you can go and raise a family, and then you can go and be an empty nester, because each one of those different lifestyles, or whatever sequence people go through, it can take a different type of dwelling unit to accomplish that, to meet that most efficiently and effectively for people. And that's why I think we see neighborhoods like Riverside, College Hill, South Central. You can have a single family house, you can have a duplex next to it, you can have a small apartment building. I can point you to 3 or 4, within 3 or 4 blocks in College Hill, you will run into 4 or 5 different types of residential dwelling units on various properties. I know the same is true of South Central and Midtown. That was all because we didn't have single family zoning at the time that those were developed. So the places for people is saying, look, build on the good bones that you have of good walkable places, provide a variety of housing units. But there's a huge caveat to places for people, in that it says the designs should reflect the context in which they're developed. So that, I think, is where we see a lot of tension and conversation in places for people. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of.
And has council delayed passing the architectural designs, right? There was that big contest between WABA wanting these little boxes with no front porches and versus the city hired architect who had things that were more consistent with what you're talking about, taking into account the character, because we don't.
Well, I wouldn't say that council has delayed it. I think what has happened is that as part of Places for People, it recommended changes to the zoning code. Those changes to the zoning code have been, that's a difficult and challenging subject because it's so diverse and it's so complex, right? And there are a variety of different perspectives on that issue. So those zoning changes have never happened. But what has happened in the interim is that we've seen a lot of interest in duplexes. There was a particular case that started out because it was controversial. It was in District 6, and as part of the kind of the resolution for the surrounding residents, there were design conditions that were requirements of that case that were added on. After that, the planning department, and this was just prior to me getting to the planning department, started adding conditions about designs to many different duplex cases that came in, if it was infill duplexes. That sparked a conversation when developers came forward and had said, yeah, we agreed to it, or it got approved, and then they went to get their building permits and they found out that their designs were not consistent with that zoning. When they couldn't get their building permit, it rocketed, the temperature of the conversation immediately. And since then, this has been an ongoing dialogue about every case, what to do on an individual basis. And we've arrived right now at a pause of including the design recommendations in the staff reports for the time being, while this kind of conversation, this overall conversation is taking place. That's like places for people history, like 4 or 5 years in a nutshell.
Yeah. I guess, we're asked to approve things a lot without having the people here to answer questions and without any of these, things in the plan that he's talking about later. The fact that nobody's spoken up hurts the decision-making process. You know, if there's no neighbors here, it's hard to make a decision on that kind of thing. We have to go by what we've done in the past and how people have responded in the past and the nature of the development. It looks like there's potentially quite a few units that could go into this property. And there's nothing, I don't think they're gonna be able to get 10 up there. Is there also a requirement for trees every 1.25 acre or something?
Yes, that's part of the landscaping, and that's described on page 2. The property about single family zoning for the north, south, and west, as well as 2-family residential in the east and west. Applicant will be required to plant 1 shade tree, or they can substitute 2 ornamental trees per 40 linear feet of property.
So the other thing that's happening in places for people is that parking spots and parking requirements get dismissed. We saw that happen in the village when the guy expanded his small unobtrusive elder care business to something larger with outbuildings and something that was clearly not in keeping with the temperature of that area. So again, we're being asked to make decisions without any. I mean.
Without plan in place.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I'm tempted just to say no, out of concern for the people that are around there and the lack of the planning and the precedence part of it.
Have you considered asking for it to be brought back on another time?
We can't have the public speak right now. I'm so
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I'm dying.
No, you are. Scott, so just so I'm clear, so this is a 1,075 foot square structure, right? That's the footprint, and they're potentially want to place 10 units?
The staff report.
Okay, okay,
It says, the staff report refers to what the maximum.
okay,
Yeah.
but wouldn't there be, I mean, that's what, 100 square foot per unit?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that seems pretty unrealistic.
Not including hallways or anything like
Right,
that.
right, okay,
Tiny homes.
just no tiny rooms, yeah.
Unless they
Tiny,
go up,
tiny
are
homes.
they allowed to go up?
They would be allowed to go up.
So they could have like a multi-story building.
There'd be a height limit to it, but, you know, I think the first thing you'd run into is just economic feasibility. I mean, how, you know, you generally would want to go 1-2 stories, maybe 3, I think, before you have to put in an elevator at 4. You have to go into like big structural beams and stuff that gets really expensive. So I can't.
It's not going up.
Yeah.
Okay. Action with.
I do have one question.
Yes, David.
So I'm looking at the site map that's in red. And what is that structure that is outside that red boundary? Is that a residential home or is that a garage? I can't tell from the photo.
Get that stock?
Yeah, it's a question about what's being shown on the graphic. And I'm sorry, I can't say for certain. It shows a shed, it shows an outbuilding, and then it shows what appears to be a building. Becca, if we could bring that up on the screen, I think that would be helpful.
There is a church there now.
There's a church building there now. And I believe that's what's represented on this graphic, because it shows stairs at the front, and it shows the building located up at the corner. And if we go to the aerial, I think that matches up with what the aerial is showing.
Would it be looking north? Because we have the pictures from the site. Would that be looking?
Oh,
Would it be looking east?
well, if you see the footprint that's shown on the graphic that they submitted, this one right here, you'll notice that this has a staircase right here. Stairs and what appears to be an entrance, and also where the building itself is. And then back if we go to the aerial, you'll see that the entrance is
Yeah.
here, and where it's located is situated on the same spot on the lot.
That was a church. right?
So I believe it's the church.
Are they gonna tear that down?
I do not know.
Is what David asking, what is that to the right? Is that what you're asking, David? What is the building?
Yes, because it seems like you're asking to rezone the area that's in the red boundary, but it looks like, is that not what we're considering for a change of zone? I mean, and I'm trying to find out what the builder or the developer is trying to do, because if he's taking that whole north, section of the block, is he going to be tearing all of that down to make all of that multifamily? That's what I'm trying to discern.
I think what I got is a question about whether or not they're gonna be building down the church. Yeah, but we don't know. I mean, it doesn't indicate it in the staff report about whether or not the building will be demolished. Yeah, I do not know.
So that house, or building to the right. To the east, right on, is that to the east?
Yep.
David was asking if the zoning is changing just in the red lines.
It's changing, yes, with just in the red lines, which is the property boundary for this. It's the parcel boundary for this property. So it's one parcel is the subject site. Now, what's shown on the graphic by the applicant are different lots, because it's possible for one parcel to have multiple lots on it.
25-foot lots, 25-foot
Which
wide.
were standard lots.
But we don't know if that's their intentions or not.
We do know that the rezoning is limited to this area outlined in red. We do know that. Whether or not this building stays, we don't know that.
And it's already a 2-family residential district, and based on the square foot, that's pretty adequate for a 2-family and not more, in my opinion.
I don't think we have enough information to make a decision on whether they're gonna smash the building, they're gonna turn it into 6 separate lots, or what.
Whether they're
That's
going
my
to,
personal, where it's one big building. And there's no parking, they're gonna park on OC and down Santa Fe also. If they're limited to 10 units.
I take that as a statement. If it's a question for me. let me know.
Sorry.
Well, you're
I would like to make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead, David. Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone until we can find more information from the developer.
If I may, I just want to add that the way that it works is that the DAB makes recommendations. And in this instance, at the beginning of the staff report, it indicates that it will go to the Planning Commission on December 14th. So it will be on that schedule, and then after the MAPC meeting, it will be scheduled for the council. So you can make the recommendation to defer it to your next meeting, and I believe you would have enough time to have it heard at MAPC, return here before, and then also have a second bite at the apple here before it goes to city council. Because by deferring it, what I'm trying to indicate is you're not changing the schedule for the case. The case continues. It's just a matter of whether you get a second opportunity to hear it or not.
But I think
Okay,
the
well
other
then,
thing
then,
about-
it- then, it- then I rescind that motion and make a new motion to deny.
I would second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny by David and a second by Rich. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Those two ayes.
Voting from Chicago.
All opposed, same sign.
Yeah.
And of course, Becca will abstain. All right, thanks, Scott.
Thank
Thank you, Scott. Was that the appropriate thing you just did?
I want them on the recognition, so I'll not speak. Already whether that was appropriate.
It was a valid motion. It was a valid motion.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is up to the feedback to your guys' feelings, so no right or wrong answer, it's your concerns and. However it goes, that's how it goes.
All right, so let's move on to agenda item number 7, the retaliatory eviction ordinance. We have Jennifer is gonna come up and talk to us about that. Go Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone, Deb members, Vice Mayor. I'm Jennifer Magania from the City of Wichita's Law Department. And we're here tonight to just present this ordinance formally for your review. This ordinance was drafted by city staff at the, to address problems we're hearing, or staff is hearing, council members are hearing about tenants being improperly evicted in retaliation for legitimate complaints or lawful complaints of the habitability or the conditions of their rental property. So staff was tasked with coming up with some type of an ordinance to provide remedies within the city's sphere. You know, what could they do, what can we do to protect tenants in this situation? So by history, this ordinance was presented to city council at the November 21st council. At that time, I don't think it had been formally presented to all the DABs, and it was directed by council to bring it to all the DABs and get feedback. That sound about right? So we're here to do that tonight. And I'm just here to walk you through what this ordinance would look like as drafted. It is coming back to city council on the December 19th. So this is for you to provide direction, feedback, comments and questions. And so thank you, Becca, for pulling up this PowerPoint. By the way, I didn't do the work. There's another attorney in my office named Nate Johnson who did the work here. I'm just kind of carrying the message. But I just want to credit him. So this is a little bit about how we got here. We hear these reports. It does vary by council district. There have been issues for some time that people want to address. And so there's been meetings with stakeholders and receiving input, and the one consistent direction that we received is something to do with the retaliatory evictions. So try to address that. So what we looked at is a model kind of blending. First of all, let me back up. There is a state law that is the Civil Landlord Tenant Act under Chapter 58, Kansas law. State legislature has enacted those laws that are landlord tenant rules, you know. This would not replace those. It would not conflict with those, but it would perhaps supplement those. That state law. It takes action in district court to go enforce landlord tenant rules. So we looked at what the city of Wichita, under its home rule authorities, the city did. It adopted a retaliatory eviction ordinance in this summer. And so, you know, a little bit about what the state law does, what I just mentioned. We looked at, you know, kind of how the Topeka did it. And then we looked at what have we done similarly? Well, we adopted a non-discrimination ordinance. I think I came to your dad, we talked about it once. In 2021, in terms of how process-wise it would look, you know, how would it look at the local level? So what we've done is drafted an ordinance that would impose fines for a penalty, and it would make it a civil violation for a landlord to violate this ordinance. This is similar to state law, but it's a little further in that it adds manufactured or mobile homes to this ordinance, to provide protection for those folks, for tenants in that. Similar to state law, goes a little bit more as mobile home manufacturing. It does define things that are not retaliatory. Landlords still retain the right to evict people when they have not paid their rent or failed to perform or damaged, whatever it is, the term of that lease. They still can enjoy those rights that landlords have. But this would just give it one more level of enforcement, if you will. The thought is that at the state law, the tenant rights, I guess, the damages available to tenants are civil damages, and some defense of eviction. It's not necessarily an easy thing to get, a conviction on, or the damages are limited to. So this ordinance in process would be similar to the non-discrimination ordinance, that a tenant who feels that their rights have been violated, that they have been evicted for in retaliation for exercising their lawful right to complain. But they would have to file a complaint with the city within 180 days of that action. The city would review it. The city law department looks at it to see if it meets jurisdiction. Did it happen in the city of Wichita? Does it fit in our ordinance? Was it within 180 days, etc.? Are you a tenant? Those kind of things. And then we give the parties an opportunity, if it meets those standards, parties an opportunity to go to mediation for free if they want to seek out a third party. We have a third party mediator who we provide. They can see if they can work this out, and if not, that's up to them. And if it doesn't work out, there's no resolution, then the case comes back for review. And then we look into an investigation, we get at the facts and do an investigation and see, does it have probable cause that there was an actual investigation? And if so, then it's forwarded to a hearing before one of the municipal court judges. City of Wichita has municipal court judges who would serve as a hearing officer and just make a hearing on this. And then there is a fine at the end of that process. If there is a finding and a civil violation under this ordinance, the landlord would be subject to a fine. And those fines start out at $250, yeah, and those fines can be juggled and switched however council wants to do it, the Wilton Council. There's a progressive rate for further convictions, so that's what we're like. And the winner can seek costs and fees from this case. There's that. So it really, the cost to the city to enforce it are minimal. We have a mediator. We may have to hire an investigator at some point. The law department would handle most of the review. Yeah, it's consistent with state law. We think it just maybe supplements, maybe, it gives that just a local level of way to address retaliatory eviction. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I kind of went through that quickly, but if you just want to give you the idea of what we're doing. And so I think the action item is for you to discuss and provide comment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the DAB? Yes, Jerry.
Is there if the landlord's doing wrong, if he's found not guilty of that, is there any repercussion against the person who brought charges against him?
No, but the prevailing party could go against the other party for costs. If they had hired an attorney, they could go out.
That'd be on them, not the landlord.
Yeah. What it says. Now that's something that can be changed in the ordinance before we pass it. That's just one considerations. Yeah, I can't find where that is right now.
Any other questions from the DAB, Rich?
Yes. The mediation, it says the city will be paying for that?
Yeah, we have actually contracted with a firm to provide mediation for non-discrimination ordinance cases, and the city would just, under that contract, probably use that same mediator. It would cost, it's per hour, we pay a fee, so.
But in some cases, when they use mediation, the cost is then rolled back part of it to the person or the parties involved so that they are actually there for the actual mediation and not just to spend the funds. Why is that not being done?
Well, this is modeled again just after the city's non-discrimination ordinance. It's all something that can be changed, doesn't have to follow that. It's just kind of, we kind of melded this together with city's Topeka's ordinance and our existing. So that's all up for debate. That's just kind of the model we used. So, yeah.
It seems like it's awful hard. How do you prove it? How do you prove it? It's what the kids. How do you determine it's? I mean, how can you determine that it's retaliation?
Yeah, you would look at the facts and, each case, you look at facts and you look at the definitions. We look at what retaliatory eviction is defined as. Under our code, we say it's defined as commencement of eviction, increasing the rent, or reduction of services required to be provided, in response to somebody filing. You have to show some intent and you have to show some causation, you have to show that the two are connected, that there was a, complaint made and that this person was retaliated against because of that. So it depends on facts.
Any other questions for the dad?
And it has to be within 6 months of that. There has to be, somewhat of a time connection between somebody having filed a complaint and then something, eviction or something happening to them.
I have a question.
Yes.
When is this gonna go to the city council to be approved?
When
Do we have a
did it-
date? No, do we have a date when the city council is gonna vote on this?
It's coming back to city council on December 19th.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my one question would be in this, is it talks about whether or not the tenant has actually caused the issue that relates to the property being habitable. And I'm just curious, how is that really defined, whether they caused that? Because I can see landlords saying, well, they caused that, they caused that. It wouldn't be like that if they hadn't been living there or whatever, and I could just see that being an out for landlords, especially some of the landlords that I've seen in properties in 67214, 67216, 6711, 67211, that strip.
Well, there's an attempt to balance both rights and it's similar to
Sure.
state law. I mean, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
It is similar to state law. You can't really conflict with state law.
Right.
So there is a balance there.
Okay, there's no other questions from the dad. Do you have any questions from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Basically, from what I'm hearing from you, it really doesn't, it still supports the landlord. Everything, even with the retaliation, how you've got it written. For example, if the person or the tenant has not paid 1 month's rent or late on their payment, that landlord can send them out. That's a right they have under state law now. Yeah, sorry. I understand the state law, but basically how everything is written, it protects the landlord. It does not protect the tenant. The tenant can be living in a home that they're not fixing the plumbing, there's stuff in it, you name it, problematic, and they say that it's the tenant's fault when it wasn't. There's mold, there's all kinds of things. And the tenant could be reporting that to the landlord and they haven't done a thing. Now the tenant's still wrong because the tenant doesn't want to pay to live in a rodent infested home, roach infested, moldy home. But if they go to somebody and report that, the landlord has the right to evict you, period. It's a state law. So really, no matter what you're saying for retaliation, you can even pay up your rent and come around to the next time. The landlord says, oh, I don't want you more, you're evicted. The landlord is able, if you get Social Security and the landlord says, well, you have to have it paid by the 5th, but you don't get your Social Security by the 5th every month because of how Social Security has set it up. Well, we're going to charge you $30, $5 a day after that. None of that is set up to protect the tenant. So that keeps building and building. So that gives the landlord another reason to evict you. So basically, tenants have no rights. And that retaliation that you've written is so marked in trying to understand what you're talking about. All I get is that the landlord still is in charge and can do whatever they want. And even with the payment, it's gonna fall back on them if we have mediation on that tenant who doesn't have the money to deal with, and they want out of where they're at. So it's all problematic, and I do believe that it needs to be some kind of a thing that we go to the legislatures and say, look at all these tenants' rights. You wanna know why we have so many people that are homeless? It's partly because of these landlords who are throwing people out for various reasons. That's my thing, is that it needs to be clear, you know, till people who are living in their substandards, who don't want to pay this landlord, keep paying them to live substandardly because they refuse to do the work, but yet they can put somebody else in and move on and let the whole place keep going down and not respect the ones that are taking care of their property. Because there are tenants who have been still taking care of their property, living in situations where it's poor. Thank you. And I have some pictures I can show you.
Anybody else from the public have any questions or comments? Okay. So I think that the recommended action for this is, pardon me?
Is it receive and file? Provide comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to agenda item number 8, improvements to Mount Vernon from Southeast Boulevard to Oliver.
I'm gonna go ahead and start. Good evening, my name is Sean Madison, Chief Design Engineer for the City of Wichita. Project we're here to talk about tonight is Mount Vernon, from Southeast Boulevard to Oliver. I didn't put it in a bullet, but I'll mention it here, and I'll mention something that recently happened too. January of 2023, we got the design funding approved, or the 2023 funding approved for this project, so we can go out with an RFP or hire consultants to be able to design this project. On June 6th of 2023, the city council approved the design contract with Hoffman. Brent Chestnut is here with Hoffman Company, so if you got any tough questions, that's where they're going. One of the other components of this, we just learned in the last 2 weeks that we are going to get some HSIP money to completely reconstruct Mount Vernon and hydraulic intersection. So that would be programmed into the 2025 CIP to add money in there to design that and then to reconstruct a decent portion of the reconstruction fund. I believe HSIP is 90-10, so 90% of the funds can actually come from the state. The federal government is giving the state money and they're giving it to us through that project. So that's another thing. We will do the minimal amount of work at Mount Vernon hydraulics that we need to make everything work correctly, because we're gonna come back and rebuild it and reconstruct that whole thing, brand new everything. And if you've been to that intersection, the traffic signals, all that stuff is old. Project limits, just in case you don't know the area. So north is up on this map, Southeast Boulevard over here on the left, Hillside in the middle, Oliver on the right-hand side of the screen. Mount Vernon is the red line going through there. Just to give you a little bit of context of kind of where we're at too. Mount Vernon from Southeast Boulevard to Broadway was constructed in the last 2-3 years. It was reconstructed to a 3-lane with on-street bike lanes 5-6 years before that. Mount Vernon from Broadway to Greenwood, the river, more or less. Greenwood is on the east side of the river. Reconstructed through a 3-lane with on-street bike lanes. We did something similar to what we're gonna do here, glorified maintenance project that converted Mount Vernon from Oliver to Woodlawn. And that was probably about 3 years ago or so, maybe 2 years ago. The dates get mixed up when you do the whole corridor through this, but ultimately what you have on each end is you have a mile on the east end, it's 3 lanes on street bike lanes. You have a mile and a half, no, it'd be 2.5, 2.25 miles on the west end. That's a 3-lane on street bike lanes. This map right here kind of gives you an idea. Again, this is the gap. So this was the first project we constructed, Broadway to Greenwood. This is the project we constructed in the last 5 years or so. This one's probably about 3 years ago. This was a glorified maintenance project where we came in and did patchwork, resurfaced it, put up signage, and converted the 4-lane to 3-lane. That's the same thing we're looking at doing through this section. There's gonna be some different components of it I'm gonna go through. But in general, that's what we're doing. It's a maintenance project. We come in and redo any of the pavements in bad condition. We're also looking at sidewalks in bad condition. We're looking at ADA issues. We are looking at upgrading a lot of the inlets in the area, so the stormwater inlets that are on the edge of the road are still the metal tops. We're putting bikes next to them. We're gonna modify those. Give you a little bit of context here as far as traffic volumes. Typically with 3-lane, what we're looking at is once you get 17,000, particularly in the Wichita area, people are gonna start having concerns with the 3-lane roadway. There are other municipalities to go up to 20, go up to even 25,000. For the driver expectancy in Wichita, about 17,000 is about what you're gonna wanna carry on a 3-lane. And I'll go through what's traffic volumes, and that's vehicles per day. So on the west end of the project, we ended up with 4,800. All over, we're at 9,300. Actually, give me a second here. I will go through some of these numbers because I didn't put them all on the map. At GWB, you end up with around 8,400. On the east leg of GWB and on the west leg, you're about 5,700, and the hydraulic, you're about 5,400. So ultimately, it ranges from about 5,000 to about 9,500. Most of this is developed. You're not going to get a bunch of influx of traffic through here, more likely. So even if you project some traffic growth, you're not getting to 17,000 for any time in the foreseeable future as far as traffic on this section. So we don't see any issues with trying to convert it to a 3-lane. I'll go through some of the benefits here towards the end of converting to a 3-lane. But as far as traffic volume, you know, to carry that traffic, 3-lane works just fine for a section of road where you have this number of vehicles per day. Existing conditions, I'm just gonna start on the west end of the project. So this is this intersection of Southeast Boulevard and Mount Vernon. We're looking east here. The section was just reconstructed with the project back to the west. Again, you can see it as existing 4-lane roadway, curb and gutter. That's a new end installed with the project, so that's why you see it had a concrete top on it. You can actually see somebody riding a bike. Looks like it may be motorized, but again, 4-lane section. You come up over the bridge. You don't have a connection here to 135. Mount Vernon goes up and over. Sidewalk here looks pretty decent. There's some areas that's pretty rough. We will do some upgrades, wheelchair ramps, some different locations. And then there's just some broken sidewalks. This is at I-135 looking back to the west. So again, it goes up and over. So you have elevation change here just to go up and over the freeway. This is looking to the east. And 4-lane curb gutter. Pretty much the same through the corridor. About the only thing that really changes through the corridor is for some reason the width changed a little bit. It's still a 4-lane roadway, but the width changes. And I don't know if that's based on when it was built and cars were different sizes at different times. But ultimately, the main thing as far as the roadway goes, it's all curb and gutter, all has underground storm sewer. It's all a 4-lane roadway, but the actual width of the street varies a little bit. This is Mead Elementary School here on that inside of the screen. I took this mainly because we are looking at moving this pedestrian across. we're looking at moving it to Estelle, which would be. It would be the street on the east side of it, so we are looking east here, be the street running down the east side. We would put this at the intersection of Estelle and Mount Vernon on the west side of Estelle. If you've been down here when they were released, I went down here a couple weeks ago and just watched it. We've actually went down here about 2 months ago and met with school district to talk about some other things they're going to talk about. But ultimately what school does is it releases kids and they go this way. They're going out each side of the building. So nobody uses that. There wasn't one person today I went down there that used it. They go to both sides. Estelle is about twice as heavy as far as pedestrian traffic on the day I was down there. So that's the reason we're picking Estelle as far as where we're gonna put the pedestrian signal in that area. We'll have to put blackout signs, more or less telling you can't make a right on that. So people, when they come up to the intersection, because it will be right at the intersection, that you don't turn right when that is activated, and it'll be a flashing light so you see it across the way. It's not ideal to have the intersection, but it's where they're crossing now. 3-lane will help out. You only have to look one direction, and you can go part way across and then go the rest of the way across. So you're not having to deal with. You get 2 lanes, you can get cars hidden and different things, but just the vantage point of it. This is Mount Vernon and Hillside. I'll put something out here. This, when we reconstructed this, we set it up for this exact thing. That's why you have a joint over here. That is the bike lane. Believe it or not, and I would have told you were crazy before I went and looked at some of the intersections we have. When our pavement markings degraded, people are driving based upon those joint lines. And I can show you a couple intersections where you don't have pavement markings, it's actually through the intersection and you have an offset. And you don't notice it until you actually look at it. Central, and I think Woodlawn is probably one of them that I drove through, I don't know how many times, never realized it. It's a 6, 7, 8 foot offset through the intersection, particularly when you're westbound. You just follow the joint line, don't even realize. Because again, through the intersection, you don't have any pavement markings. And if you do, you have the tracks for left turn lanes where you have like good left. So when we joined this project and we reconstructed this about probably 5 years ago now, maybe 6, 7. Let's say too long. They all kind of run together, but it was prior to the other projects on Mount Vernon. But we joined this to be able to go to a 3-lane Street bike. This is that same section. This is the same section. So that picture was looking to the east on the west side of the intersection. This is on the west side of the intersection looking back to the west. So when we did this project and we striped it the way it is, there were people who didn't like what we did here as far as the lane configurations transition from 4 to 3. When we're done with this project, that issue goes away. It's all a 3. This is Mount Vernon and GWB. I stopped here and took a picture partly because there is no sidewalk in this area. You can see a little bit here on this side. There's about, I don't know, what it is, 1,000, 1,500 foot gap to where the church, I believe it's a church there on the top of the hill. That we're going to add sidewalk in this area, at least on one side. What we're picking right now is we're proposing to put it on the north. We could always come back and do it in the south, but the concern, some of these houses relatively close. This one's super close. If we put the sidewalk even the back curb, it's right outside their front, right outside their door. So that's why we're doing it. This section 2 also is about 3 or 4 blocks long, but there is not any sidewalk on the south side. So we're looking at reconstructing probably a decent chunk of this based on the conditions and looking, tying it into the intersection. There's a little gap here at the intersection, and then filling in the gap.
And that also would mean the sidewalk going by the elementary school a little further east on Mount Vernon there. Right.
I'll get to that. So this is Griffith. This is Bluff here. Again, we're gonna do the same thing with those pedestrian signals. We're looking at putting on the east leg of this intersection. This one wasn't as bad on the day I was out there. I don't know Part of it is the younger kids, there are not as many of them walking, at least not the day I was out there. There were a group of 3 that used that because they were going east. There was a couple kids with, based on what they look like, they look their mom, that came down to this park and played, but they did not use it. And I'm guessing that was because she felt comfortable with mom walking across. But if we could put it at that intersection, then everybody uses it, because that's where they were gonna cross anyway. Now, I think I actually scared them because I was standing over here trying to make sure that other people actually used it to see.
Where are you
but
proposing to move it to?
this is the east leg of this intersection. So it's a direct shot. No, it's about 200 feet down the roadway, and some people aren't using it because it's 200 feet down the roadway.
that,
I use
that
it.
light down there.
Yeah.
But that's 400 feet if you go down, up and come back, right?
I mean, it's safer. I think the 400 feet isn't that big a deal, but that's where we're looking to do it. Again, going to the 3-lane helps the configuration, even if we left it where it was at. Would help the configuration because you don't have as many lanes to go across. At least as far as traffic is concerned. And this is the very east end of Oliver. So this is on the east leg of Oliver. You can see the 3-lane Pond Street bike lane. In fact, somebody spilled some paint over on the eastbound lanes, but so that's what it's gonna transition into the 3-lane Pond Street bike lanes. It's on this list. Like I said, I'll roll through these pretty quick because I don't want to get hung up on what we have here. But ultimately, what we're looking at is converting into 3-lane. This just shows the section of what's there now. So on the bottom, it's a little over 11-foot lanes right now. We have the back with 10-foot through lanes, 5-foot bike lane. On this section of it. From Southeast Boulevard to Hydraulic, you get a little bit wider, and actually from Hydraulic to go, you get really wide. So it's 12-foot lanes, 12-foot lanes. So where we can, we're gonna put bike buffers in, where we have the room to be able to do so. Within the existing, and then you go from Grove to Hillside, and it gets kind of. And so we're even trimming down some of the traffic lanes to that area to be able to get the on-street bike lanes in. What we will do is come in and do any base repairs, any cable repairs we need to, and then we're gonna put an asphalt surface on it. Even if it's concrete, we're gonna do some type of asphalt surface, and the reason being is to get rid of those joint lines, cover up those joint lines, so people aren't trying to follow the joint lines rather than following where the striping is going. So if you drive 17th Street on the south side of WSU, we did something very simple. That's a concrete street. We came to put some asphalt on top of it, retracted to a 3-lane street bike there. This is just the overall concept. I'm not gonna walk through any of it. We have boards back there if anybody wants to look at them. I will point out a couple different things through the concept is we are looking at putting some medians around that 135. Based on some discussions about the park in the city. I think we're gonna try to put some trees in there, with the project. This is the pedestrian crossing at Estelle. So again, this whole section right here is Mead Middle School from Grove to Estelle. We're gonna put that new pedestrian crossing right here. Right now it's right here. So we're gonna put it on the west leg of the intersection of Mount Vernon and Estelle. Here's the sidewalk we're looking at adding. It's like we're about 2 blocks, block and a half sidewalk that we're adding. There is no sidewalk now on the east side of GWB. We are doing some water line work with the project too. Comes out of a different fund, but we have a couple of 2-inch lines that we don't want to do this work and then come back in 2 or 3 years and have to go out in the middle of the street because that's where the water line's at and reach out to make improvements with the water lines. So we're doing a couple of water lines, one on Terrace Drive and one on Reed. Existing lines will stay active. put in the new line by directional drill in general to try to help save any tree canopy. So the only place you end up with holes is where they have bore pits from one directional drill to the other, and then wherever you have water meters. Once that's up and tested and running, they'll add services and reconnect. So your time out of water is minimal. This is the pedestrian crossing at Clough that we would look at, moving to the east leg of that intersection, with the project. Funding, like I said, in January, City Council approved design funding, or the first year of funding for this project, and that was $360,000. The adopted 2024-2033 capital improvement program includes $4.5 million in 24 for a total budget of $4.86 million. All that's local sales tax. We presented this to the Bike Ped Board on December 11th. The design concept will go to City Council on January 9th. And anticipated construction will be summer, fallish of 2024. Some of it depends on what we actually end up doing with the surface treatment. There's some different timing aspects of some of that. But we'll have to anticipate that. We can give you updates as you come back. We typically, Public Works does quarterly updates at the district advisory board, so we can give you updates as far as where we're at design wise and when we think construction's gonna go as we move forward. And with that, I think that should be it. Open up questions, comments, and ultimately I'd like to get approval of the design concept.
Okay, very good. Questions from the DAB? Gary.
Where is the handicap thing gonna be at Clap Park? Is it on Mount Vernon right in that corner?
No, it'll be on the north side.
It's gonna be on the north side of Clap?
Yeah. There will be a dog park off of Mount Vernon. Hope, but it's scheduled to be done before this project is done.
Would that be on the southwest corner where you was talking about moving
Yes,
the
sir.
light to? That's one
And
question.
we're not moving the light very far. It's
Yeah.
just where people, you don't have to go out of your way at all to use it. So it is ultimately the reason we're moving it to where we are moving it to, so as many people as possible use it.
Debbie, you have a question?
I have several.
Okay.
Between Hillside and Oliver.
Yep.
You're redoing, or you're, the storm sewer, there's flooding in there. Is something gonna be done to make that flooding go away? I've lived in that area for 25 years. And I've walked that street, so it's just gonna get worse.
It's not gonna get any worse. We're not doing any pavement. It's the same width as
You're
what's there.
bringing the asphalt up. If you're leaving concrete down and adding asphalt. My ex-in-laws ran a asphalt company, so.
Well, it depends on what we do. I mean, what with the section on 17th, exactly what we did is we did an edge mill, so you didn't end up with anything there. So you didn't end up with a bump at all. So what you ended up with is it's so thin, all you're trying to do is add a little bit of structural and to cover up the pavement markings. It doesn't amount to anything flooding wise. It's gonna make any impact.
Since it went down to 3-lane in the other areas, I've noticed a decrease in traffic on even our area. Because people, myself included, don't like to go down there because you can't pass people, you know, you're stuck behind somebody. It's cumbersome. And so the overflow goes to Harry and Pawnee, which makes it more difficult to get down the busy streets. That right there is a real problem if you live in that neighborhood. Because WSU moved in there and that's even more traffic. So I'm not against the bike paths, but I think there's a more feasible way to do this. If we've got Clap Park there, if we're gonna put all this stuff in there, why wasn't it considered that Clap Park give up some of their land and be still left as a 4-lane and put the bike paths on the outside using that?
Well, Clap Park in this area is only like a 2-block section. It's actually adjacent to Mount Vernon. Right? If we go back to an aerial, there's on the east part of it, there's one street that goes back in there and has houses. Then you have about a 1 or 2 block stretch where Clap Park is actually adjacent to Mount Vernon. So they're gonna give up right away. You're only talking about 1,200 feet. Sorry, 1,000 or 1,500 feet there of where you could do that. So what are you gonna do with the rest of it?
City's taken away right of ways off the property before and to widen streets. That's how that street got widened in the first place. So, you know, it's a great idea, but it's a bad idea too. Because it's redirecting traffic. You're gonna have more wrecks on Harry. You know, and there's just, it's not feasible for me.
I live on a 3-lane. I live way out west, but I live on a 3-lane. I don't see that at all. Just from where I live, the traffic volumes probably aren't as high as what they are all over here in Mount Vernon, but
Mount Vernon's Ray Sally. Do you live next to Ray Sally? That's Ray Sally.
that's part of what the 3-lane does. It takes the top off of your speeders because you can't do exactly what you were saying to do, that you can't weave from one lane to the other.
But at 2 o'clock in the morning, come on over and
Oh,
watch the
well,
race.
he's straight away. I mean,
Yeah.
people can race on it if they want.
You
I
can
mean, which
hear
is
it.
pretty much every arterial street.
Well, okay.
Any other questions from the DAB? Okay. Yes, Gerald.
Yeah, you're talking about all this widening and shortening and stuff. What are you doing about the flooding down around Platt Park?
With this project, nothing.
Nothing?
No.
Then why are you taking it from a 4-lane down to what, 2-lane, 3-lane?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
It's to be able to get this bike lane from the river all the way out to Woodlawn.
Yeah, I get that, but from Oliver back up to like Bluffview or something, that's more than 2 blocks. That water's all the way up to the curb and over. And there's some people, there's a little park down there that floods. There's not a dry spot unless you're on top of the swing or the slide. There's not a dry spot out there. So instead of spending all that money on that, why can't you just take care of one problem at a time and just do something about the flooding? Because I'm pretty sure them people there, they're tired of having to go swimming out in the front yard.
Well, what would be the feasibility too of a bike path if it's covered in rain?
Well, if it's covered like he's talking about, driving through it ain't gonna be very easy either.
But you can't drive through it.
It would seem like
Unless you
drainage
get a boat.
would be a part of.
I don't know what the fix is as far as some of the drainage problems you have down here. I don't know that there is an easy fix. It's still gotta go somewhere.
Well, it comes out through the Platt Park.
No, I understand that, but there's ultimately, when we rebuilt Mount Vernon and Hillside, there's actually a system that's tied together up north of there. And trying to model it becomes awfully hard to do because figuring out how much goes through each one during different rain events becomes a little bit tricky. But all the water's gonna end up in the same location it ends up now, so I don't know that there is just a simple fix of just being able to add pipe.
So I'm gonna go to Scott and then I'm gonna come up here.
I just want to offer up a process idea is that the way that projects get funded is through the CIP, Capital Improvement Program. The CIP is traditionally brought forward to the DABs along with the budget. And it's generally, I think, around like August when it has to be adopted. So I think it's like June, July, somewhere in there. And that is a great opportunity if residents feel strongly and DAB members. I know that's separate from this, but I just want to offer that up, is that's a really good opportunity to bring up projects that need to be undertaken in the district.
Thank you, Scott.
And Madam Chair, if I may add on to a little bit of that.
I don't know, you're out of order. No, I'm just kidding.
There is discussion. Right now, we are currently trying to find a fix for the Bleckley flood lanes that go through the north side of Wichita on down. As soon as we figure that out, the project keeps shifting because of some federal guidelines and some of our plans that actually take out a good number of houses. So once we have that figured out, we're next on the list for addressing flooding in South Wichita. That's gonna be a big project there. We still have, I think, Capskin out in West Wichita too. We're trying to get some federal funding with that. But when those projects are figured out, we're gonna get to the South Wichita flood. and start allocating funds and bringing that down here because, like you said, I mean, we have it in South City as well. We have it in Plainview. We get tired of people having to walk through, and it's like up on people's lawns even. You have a major flood, and I've seen elderly people have to walk around standing pools of water to get to their front door. So that is on the agenda to address. We just have to figure out the Bleckley thing before we can really dig into South Wichita.
Well, one thing that I was thinking that we've already got ponds there in the Clap Park. Why not just make them a little bit bigger? And let that water backflow.
With the size of the basin you're talking about, that may help a little, but it's incremental.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge basin you're talking about. So if you're just having a little bit bigger pond there, it ain't gonna amount to any difference in what you're gonna see, just because of the basin you're talking about. That's part of the issue with the casting. How big that basin is, I don't even wanna throw out a number because I don't know it exactly, but that basin out west is just huge. It's flat. It doesn't have a whole lot of grade to it. It is so big that, I mean, what they looked at or what they're trying to get federal money for is building more or less a huge pond way out west farther to try to get some of the, part of the issue out there is Dry Creek overflows, and it cuts across and starts coming in different basins if you get a big enough rain out west, because again, it's so flat. That the idea was you build a humongous pond, and we're talking about buying a bunch of farmland to be able to do it. And the last time they took it to DC, they said more or less when they submitted the application, there's not enough damage to property to make the justification to get the federal money for it. Now, I don't know whether that changes over time, and there's obviously still development going on, so there's more people that potentially could be within the area depending on how bad it gets, but it's all got to come back into this creek. I mean, if you're anywhere near Clap, it's all gonna have to come back in there, so I don't know what the great fix is through this area. Bleckley is a monster, and what do you do? I mean, we've come up with a couple different solutions, but there's negatives to those solutions.
Do the negatives outweigh the good?
Depends on who you are, I guess. Depends on who you are. How many houses, what did the latest plan talk about taking out in order to address it? Well, and that's part of it too. The prime reason for doing Bleckley is life safety issue. And it mainly comes down to flow rate and depth, which kind of go hand in hand. That water's moving through that area. So that's a big reason. That's priority kind of number one on the hit list as far as stormwater goes. But I don't think too many of the houses there flood.
No, it's not the houses.
I mean, if you look at Bleckley, the houses typically sit up 3 or 4 feet from the actual roadway. I mean, it's pretty steep up there, so that's if you're buying out houses that flood consistently, that's one thing. If you're taking out houses that don't, that's a harder pill for people to swallow. Now, it's an inconvenience, but the other thing is that is a linear basin. So it's not real wide, but it's pretty developed. So it peaks real quick and starts going down pretty quick.
Okay, I've got to come back to this lady right here, and George, I'll get you next.
I have a comment and then a question. About the park that you're talking about. I live right next door to it. The flooding has improved immensely over the last few years. It's really improved a lot. Maybe this summer is because it's been so dry, but it has improved. And I think it's because of all of the houses they've taken out on down the line. And I really love this project. I find that being on Mount Vernon, it is like a raceway. And I am really hoping that the 3-lane will slow everybody down. I love the 3-lane. I think it's great between between Oliver and Woodlawn, and I love it. I think everybody slows down. It's a residential street. It's not, it's a residential street. It's not a commercial street. So it should be slower. And you've got all those kids there going to school. I also love the plan of moving the light
thank you, as someone who walked their kids to Griffith all the time. And they never wanted to go down to that light. And I made them. I appreciate that. Now my question is there gonna be a sidewalk from Bluff to, along Clap Park?
We did not propose it.
It's really.
It doesn't mean we couldn't do it. When we've talked to the park department or the landscape architect who's involved with the Clap Park project, part of the concern was some of the disc golf actual tee off places are pretty close. So we did not propose it. We can always add it if that's something the board wants us to look at.
I used to watch kids walk from, there's some area on the other side of the park that kids go to school. And they would walk through that wet grass and they'd come in with their shoes and their pants so soaking wet from walking through that park. And if there was a sidewalk, that would be nice.
George, let me go to George.
Yes, Sean, where have you been all my life? Years ago, we had to go put little stickers on these projects. It was like 23 projects. Mount Vernon came in tied for second. They thought it was in Virginia, the people on the board. How the heck did it get tied for second? I put all my stickers, except for a couple, on Mount Vernon to get it tied for second. So, but I was on the bicycle board and I got a deal that said that this was supposed to start 19 and be finished in 20. So now 5 years later, I think you're just trying to outlive me, so I'll die before I ever get to drive from Woodlawn to the dang river. I've always wanted to, never could because there's no way to get there. So why just say COVID and we'll go from there, because that's what you guys are going to say. Why it went from 19 to 20? I've got it in my notes that we was going to start in 19, be done in 20. Then all of a sudden now it's 24 to 25. 5 years later, unacceptable. I mean, honestly, I'm not blaming you. You're not the one. And the flooding problem right there where they're talking about, that's gone in hours. I mean, unless we get a torrential. I lived there. I'm the president of the neighborhood since '99 for 24 years. Trust me, it's gone within hours. I mean, it flows like you said, and it goes out. So, and that's not part of your gig to change that intersection. Do we need to get bigger pipes or dig down? Yeah, sure. But they sold 23 houses. People had to leave their house because they didn't want to put a retention or detention pond. There are no ponds at Clap. All there is a stream that goes through it. No ponds. They needed to put one, but like you said, it had to be so big, it would be minuscule maybe. So I applaud you. I came here on Mount Vernon, okay, the new part. At Washington, at a stop sign, I always wait 1 or 2 seconds after it turns green. Two people, not this guy, but this guy, both of them went right to the intersection after it turned red, after I'm on 1 going to 2. So I mean, people are gonna be people. It's 35 miles an hour there. A little girl got hit last year. We need to do something about that. They come up over that hill, you can't see. A little girl got hit. I mean, we can't have that. So we gotta put those flashing lights or something, whatever. So please incorporate that when they flying over that hill, 35, they're doing 55. You know how that goes. You can ask, you're living on the street, she's right there, tell you, Mike Loop, is he still on the board? He would tell you he's on right across from the park. So I applaud what you're doing. Where have you been for them 5 years? Say COVID, we'll be good.
I would have to go back and look at CIPs just because I don't know where the 2019 date came from. But you are correct. If it didn't get built, COVID typically did push things back a year or two because we didn't know how bad it was going to be financially, that we kept designing stuff. We did not construct much stuff, not knowing what we were going to be in for financially as far as the city went.
Well, and you just put up there 4.8 million or something. We just gave our police department with that 5,000 bonus, $4 million. So about what the projects costed, which, okay, I'm hoping, yeah, okay.
All right, Gerald.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest 3rd Street between Hillside and the canal route. back in the seventies, that used to flood all the time. And what they did was they narrowed it down. They didn't make it any deeper, but instead of the bridge that went over Grove, they turned it into like a tunnel. They put cement on both sides and just ran it down that one. And for the last 15 years that I know of, that street, it hasn't flooded like it used to. And that water came out of from all the way over there off of 13th and Oliver.
That's similar to one of the concepts we kind of looked at with Beckley. It was very similar, but again, it impacts a lot of properties to be able to do that. Because either you're not gonna have access because you're putting in the road, so you no longer have a road in front of your house, or you're buying one side of the block to be able to put the drainage way. The bad thing about Beckley is it's naturally the low spot, so it's the river now, whenever it rains. I mean, that's just the low spot naturally. The road itself is.
Yes, ma'am.
So when are you going to begin the project and when do you expect it to end?
We're looking at summer to fall of 24 is when we begin it. I'm guessing 6 months at the most to construct it, probably.
And what did you say about the water being shut off?
We would construct a new line, test it, put in services, tie the services over. You would still be on the old line until the new line is up, running, tested, and we tie new servicing. Yes.
And you're not making the street no bigger, right?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna bring it back to the DAB for action.
Don't speak up all at once.
Is that a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the design concept.
I can second it too.
We have a motion by Rich, a second by Jerry. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Okay, so we have, and Dave,
Did you vote?
An aye for approval.
aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, which is updates, issues, and reports. Good job. Kelsey?
I clear out the house. Thank you guys. No problem. You guys drive safe home and hope you have a nice evening and stay warm out there.
Thank you for coming. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. It's nice to meet you face to face again. All right, we've had quite a few things happen over the last, Scott, you want to take more of that? Go for it, bro.
Yeah, we saw you.
There's been a lot that's been going on here the last month and a half. I'm gonna touch on some of the bigger ones, explain my votes, explain the perspectives. And like I said, I have quite a few here to talk about, so. The first one, we've all been paying attention about the need for an emergency shelter. We found out on August 19th that Humankind Ministries was not gonna be able to open their shelter this year. We scrambled around, we eventually did find a building. There were 2 options and the one we went with, I think, was by far the best option. There are concerns about the location of it. We have increased security. It's off of 21st Street, Opportunity Drive. The process was not perfect. The process was far from perfect about going through this. But in the end, we had to weigh that we had to get something now. Now, we will have an opportunity. This will shut down in March, and we have a couple of buildings lined up in the downtown adjacent area that we're gonna be using as emergency shelter until we get the MAC built here in a couple of years. And I do hope to have a presentation on the MAC. It's the multi-agency center. It will be a building that will be open for homeless individuals to come. We will try first and foremost to get them to some sort of permanent housing. We will also have various charities there to help. If we see somebody that could use a hand with rental assistance, there will also be office space there for mental health advocates, mental health groups, other groups, addiction counseling and whatnot. So we're gonna try and point people in the right direction from this building. It'll also have an emergency shelter attached to it. We got a 20 million already reserved for it. We're working with our partners in county and partners at the state level to help find the rest of the financing for it. So that's the long-term solution. Next year, there will be a midterm solution, a more stable one than what we have now. And the short one now is, again, the one at 21st Opportunity Drive. We do have the bus route that goes through there that is free. So if there's anybody that goes to the downtown core, they can take the bus route out there for free. Then we also are working with various churches and nonprofits to have busing go through back and forth there. So if it is a cold snap, a really bad snap where it's falling into dangerous temperatures, we will have people out there able to give people rides to the shelter. So it was controversial. We did have a couple of hours of people expressing their opinions on it. And it's a great thing to have democracy. It really is. I ultimately did support it. Again, it's taking care of the least. That's my perspective on it. So it's opened up last Friday. It's a very secure location. We have 2 security guards on site all the time to help. It's a 24-hour shelter, so they won't be kicking people out. That's one of the things you see in the downtown core now, is that we have day shelters and we have night shelters. We don't have 24-hour shelters. So people, they can't stay all night, so they get essentially kicked out in the morning, and you see them lined up and down Broadway. This is a 24-hour shelter, so people will not be kicked out. So that was controversial topic number 1. The ballpark, TIF, this has been in the news a lot lately as well. I explained it a little bit the last time I was here. Essentially, we need to have property in there generating revenue in order to help pay off the debt we have on the ballpark. If we do not have property on there to drive the revenue to pay off the ballpark, it will come out of our general fund. So that means there will be less money for projects. That means there will be less money for firefighters and police officers. This is not a politically popular vote that I made, and I realize that. But I told people when I got into this office, I wasn't going to make political votes. I want to do what I think is right, even if it hurts me politically. So I took the hit on that. I will take the hit, I'm sure, but in the end, I did what I thought was right for my district because I don't want us paying ballpark debt. So that's the long and the short of the vote on the TIF. If I was around on council back when they made the original proposal, I would have pushed to do things a lot differently than it happened, but I came in halfway through, so we got to figure out how to dig ourselves out of that. So that was controversial topic number 2. Number 3 is the FOP contract. There was a bonuses that was up in November on the agenda, $5,000 bonuses. This is coming from the shortfall and the money that we have allotted for WPD now. So we are about 100 officers under what we have budgeted. So the money for the bonuses comes from that. That would be into WPD anyways. It's partially a thank you to people who have been working overtime, have been working 2 shifts. It's also a retention and a recruitment bonus. This is something that Chief Sullivan feels strongly about. I trust Chief Sullivan. I think he's doing good work with a lot of the things as far as reorganizing our department, emphasizing de-escalation tactics, just making us a real forward-thinking police department. So we did originally put that off because we tied it into negotiations. We opened up negotiations with the FOP on this next year. We are currently under contract with them for the next year, but again, we're losing officers at such a pace. We want to recruit. We figured we'd go ahead and address some of these issues a year early. In exchange for that, we wanted some of the reforms promised by Jensen Hughes. Jensen Hughes was a group, an organization that came in after the text messaging scandal, and they looked at many operations within WPD, what we need to do to make our department more transparent, more fair. 76%, is it 76 or 74% of our police department actually responded to the questionnaire as well. That's about, I think they said normally it's about 25 to 30% of departments. But we had such a high number of officers who actually replied to the questionnaire. And they were also talking about things they wanted to see changed within the department. Some things as far as promotions go, some things as far as disciplinary process, and they also made recommendations for the public. So we waited until we negotiated. There's one part of Jensen Hughes, a pretty contentious part that we actually got into the current contract. So next year we will be opening up the contract for the next 3 years and hope to get the rest of the Jensen Hughes recommendations in that. So last week before council, we did get the recommendation from Jensen Hughes that we were aiming for. And we tied it all together and we voted it, I believe it was 7-0. So this will hopefully help with recruitment over the next year. And we will be negotiating with them on continuing to get some of the reforms that was promised in Jensen Hughes. Most of the Jensen Hughes reforms we're able to do it administratively. And I believe 19 of them we've already done. And we're looking at a number 22 of them. There were 54 total, 22 others that we are currently working on, including some things like we passed before council last week, which included holster triggers, to where if you pull your gun, your body camera automatically comes on. That was another part of the Jensen Hughes reforms that they suggested. So we are working on all the other suggestions as well. And some of them we do have to suss out with the FOP. So that will be in the next year. Hopefully we'll make some movement on that as well. We've seen a lot in the news lately about some issues with dispatch. We've heard this for a while now. We've been pushing for it for a while. It came to a head. First and foremost, I would like to just say that our firefighters do a bang up job. There's been some talk out there that in a particular incident, we didn't get to the fire, we didn't do our part. Our fire operations is based off of the information we get. So our firefighters did a bang up job. They did everything they could. And if they would have known that the particular address had a person in there, that would have been the very first place they would have. Now, saying that, I have been in contact with the county commission, several of the commissioners and staff. We are going to work through this. We're going to make sure that we get recommendations. They've already accepted a number of recommendations we've seen as far as how we can help out with dispatch on the 911 emergency board. So we're going to continue pushing that. They have agreed to an outside audit. So hopefully this audit will actually point out some things that we can do better for response. This is a safety thing. There's always difficulties when two governing agencies try to work together on any issue. It's the same thing with MABCD. It's the same thing when we work with the school board. It's always difficult, but I do believe that the county commission sees the need as well, and we will work through this together. Fifth issue, not necessarily controversial, but this week's district breakfast, we are actually going to be joining with Southwest Neighborhood Association at Bethany Lutheran. It's off of, did we say 26th Street? It's off of South Seneca there. They have a yearly breakfast around this time that they put on. It fell on the exact same day as our district breakfast. I figured why not just combine it and just have everybody there. So I'd love to see everybody out. We're still working on maybe a speaker, but I do know we'll have at least one city council member, one future city council member, I believe will be there. And probably a state representative who likes to poke around in some of these South Side things. So please come on down. They have a good breakfast. Believe me, again, I'm a pro when it comes to good food. So they do a good job with that. Please come down. I know it's going to be a little chilly on Saturday, but plenty of warmth inside the gym there and just good company.
It is 1000 West 26th Street South.
1000 West 26th Street South.
Are you gonna post that on your District 3 website so I can remember it? Mold.
Yeah.
I like food too.
9:30.
9:30.
Yeah. I do think it'll be going on for a while. I think maybe 2 hours or so. They just have people come and go. But yeah, 9:30 is when it's.
I enjoyed the last one you had down there with Whipple.
Yeah, well, the next one, and then we will be going back to the Christian Faith Center, which is off of Hillside and Pawnee down there, so another great location as well. The last thing, the Christmas tree lighting has been moved to Friday night in anticipation of the winter weather coming. It was originally supposed to be Saturday night. Instead it will be Friday night. And just come on down and have a festive time with everybody. I'm a little young. I do look like Santa Claus. I need another year on the job. I think won't even need a costume or anything. I'll just be a regular old Santa, but it's always a good time to just be around people this time of year, so. With that, I open it to any questions or comments.
Let me go to questions from the DAB.
Did you like something? I read that there had been a huge drug bust, 3 different locations. 2 of them were in South Wichita. They never gave locations of any of them. I'm wondering, do you have any information on that?
I saw that. I don't have the location on the exact.
I mean, it was a huge bust, and I just, living in South Wichita, I would like to know where those kinds of things go on.
If I'm thinking correctly, I think it was a little more south, East neck of the woods. If I'm remembering, if I'm thinking correctly.
You know, they often don't announce exactly where those things happen until like litigation is done. So in an active case, we can't give a lot of detail.
Well,
So
I
once it's
don't
over-
necessarily want an exact address, but I'd like to know if it was 2 blocks from me, somewhere in the area of Hillside and Mount Vernon, or 47th and Hydraulic, you know, I would like to, I would
Okay.
like that. The other thing.
I'll see what we can put out.
I would appreciate that. And I mentioned this to Becca a couple of days ago. I'd seen on Nextdoor that there's she called it a halfway house opening in the 2900 block on Senate. And I'm wondering if that is in fact a halfway house, or if it's a sober living facility, or I'm not opposed to it. But there was a lot of negative comments on Nextdoor when this person posted that it was a halfway house, and then it went into all the crime that would come with it. And I didn't know if Becca found out anything about it yet.
Without an exact address, it's hard. I'm gonna have to go down there and physically look, which I couldn't do today. But ultimately, we went through this last year. Halfway houses, sober living houses, those are run by the state. And they don't have to have special zoning or anything like that to exist unless they are like a very large facility. So there's no mechanism that makes them tell the city where they're gonna be. So we have the exact same information that you would as a resident living in the neighborhood. So I am looking into it, but I have to like physically go there and ask them, basically. The same way anyone else in the neighborhood could go knock on
But
the door.
actually, Becca, lots of times they're not run by the state, they're run by some non.
Correct, but they are overseen by the state.
Yeah, they may be overseen by the state, but the planning commission, they're by right, there's a certain amount of, they
10.
can just
10,
move
okay.
in and.
Right, exactly.
It's 10, and then if it's beyond that, then it's gonna come to the planning commission for approval.
Right.
For that to happen.
So often, yeah, there's
And
no
then that, they
mechanism
just
that
open
comes.
up, and if they're below that.
Well, and
number.
we have a sober living facility in that general area. And they've been very open and transparent and helpful with everything that we've done in the area. So I would welcome it if that's what it is.
Yeah, that's the one that everyone got angry about last year, that we had to go look up all of this information for.
We have one that's a block and a half from me, and they're the best neighbors there are, you
They
know.
usually are. They usually want to be involved. They're usually pretty quiet. They keep to themselves.
They came to my garage sale, helped, bought stuff, and went over there, we sat on the porch and chatted,
Yeah, there's just a lot of
they're great.
stigma.
I'm trying to open one that you're gonna house foster kids in though, because people get really upset about that. So Jerry, do you have a question?
It's more of a statement like about the 911. I've probably called them a dozen times this year. I live on Harry and Oliver. I've seen multiple wrecks. I've called many times. They want to give me a third degree, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. Are you hurt? I said, no, these people are wrecking in the car here. I've seen multiple assaults in my neighborhood. I've helped a couple people that were a black gentleman come out my yard with knives, but he had a mental breakdown. After I took him back to his house at least a half a dozen times, finally, he got hit by a car on Harry, and the lady called 911 because I didn't want to call 911 for them. I was afraid of what would happen if, so I don't know how to get the dialogue with them. They want to ask me a whole bunch of questions, and I'm really not want to tell them all that. I don't want to be that involved in it. And that's just something I should throw out there that you guys should be aware of. I couldn't say a black gentleman with 2 knives in my front yard and not expect something horrible to happen right in front of me. So I didn't do that, but said after several times, he got ran over hit by a car, and she did call him. And then finally, after the ambulance was out there twice, they took him away.
Now, in regard to that, we do have social workers that's working with WPD now. And one of the things I keep talking about as the chief is good about de-escalation and the tactics. We did see the shooting about 2 weeks ago. The gentleman was suicidal. He did point a weapon at the officers. They did keep telling him, put the gun down, put the gun down. They unfortunately did fire upon him, but that one is understandable. We also had another one yesterday or 2 days, yesterday actually during the council meeting. Another gentleman, not out to harm anybody else. 911 was called, dispatch, our officers went out there. And they did de-escalate and got him some help. So eventually, there was another one a couple of months ago I've talked about as well.
Larry was like in his 70s, and he was hallucinating heavily. He didn't even know where he lived, and he was just terrified.
Right.
And I actually had to yell at him. I wouldn't have let him in my yard with knives. I didn't know what to do, and it was, what am I to do?
Yeah,
I can't call 911.
we're a little more responsive to that, a more appropriate response than we have in the past, so.
What changed, the initial, response from, the dispatching 911 dispatch supervisor was very, defensive, I guess that's the word.
They were arrogant to me.
Yeah, and then one of the county commissioners, actually 2 of the county commissioners, came to her defense and were saying, nothing's going to, we're doing everything we can. And then today, they have changed their tune. What brought that about? Public outcry?
That's part of it, just having a good open discussion about many of the issues that are going on. A lot of times people will come to the defense of their employees. You can't make it to where you're blind to any inefficiencies or flaws that are there, but a lot of times the first instinct is to defend your employees. So I'm glad to see an investigation simply for the fact that lives are on the line and we need to figure this out. So I do appreciate them going out for an outside look at dispatch and improvements that we can make.
Yes, the baseball, diamond. What ideas do you have for other businesses?
Well, I think there's 3 other plots of land that can be developed around there. It's not necessarily ideas that we have, because we're not gonna be doing that ourselves, but whatever people bring to us as far as ideas for those tracts of land. Some of those tracts are already owned. And so it would be, we would have to approve any financial benefits, I guess, with that area. So whenever anything goes through, we look at the ideas that are presented, and then does that work within that TIF district, within the CID? Does that help pay off the debt of the ballpark?
One of our Wichita PD has a really good idea. I gave her your name.
Hey, I'm always down to hear good ideas.
Brittany Bailey, if she calls you, that's what has the idea.
Okay, I'll keep an ear out.
Rich, do you have anything?
I don't.
So if not, I have like a couple of comments.
Yeah.
Do we have any updates on what's going on with the old library?
Nothing right now, no.
Okay, and then with the new mental health, whatever, what'd you call it, MAC?
Well, are you talking the mental health hospital or the homeless?
The homeless.
Okay, yeah, the MAC, the
So,
multi-agency.
so who is gonna actually oversee that?
That's part of the suggestion. We have a group out now that's looking at all that. We'll bring recommendations. They'll be looking at locations for any of this. They also have ideas as far as grants that we can reach out to. So it's a very fluid process right now as far
Well, there's
as.
just not a lot of good communication about what's going on. It's been poor ever since the group that's handling it started handling it several years ago. It's been poor, so. You know, I get asked a lot what's going on, and of course, the model in San Antonio has one nonprofit organization bringing other nonprofit organizations together to address the issue. So I was just curious whether it was.
I had a nice long chat with the council member of Haven of Hope. Just kind of finding out some of the ins and outs and things we need to look out for as a community and things that are really going well down there. So I do have communication with them. I would recommend looking at last week's city and county we've been having joint meetings along with some of the state legislatures on Friday mornings. They had a presentation and good discussion about the MAC. Some things in there, again, it's very fluid. It's changed a little bit in the last 3 months since we went with this group to actually take a look at this. So again, very fluid. I understand the communication thing, but the thing here in the last couple of months has been that it's just so fluid and new ideas coming up that we don't necessarily have anything to present that might not change.
No, I'm talking about the mental health group overall.
Oh, the
It's
mental
been-
health.
Has been so hush hush, you have no idea.
Right, and
What's
that's
going on, and I've asked for years, other people have asked for years, and you can't get any. I used to be part of one of the subgroups, one of the task force associated with that, and then I didn't, no idea.
I believe that there is a committee looking at it, that's county and state. Is gonna be looking at the mental health hospital. I think they're looking for location right now. They're sworn to secrecy because if things get out, it really messes with some of the federal funding that they'll be looking at and state funding. So it's been pretty hush hush. They will come out with recommendations here shortly as to the location and the scope of the plan, but
We
I don't
do
even
have a town hall happening next week.
No, I have an invitation to that town hall. I received an invitation today to that
Were you
town hall.
referring to the 50-bed psychiatric lockup that I was asking about?
I'm talking more about the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition being hush hush about whatever.
yeah,
Whatever they're doing, and in regards to what went on with the facility, with the emergency shelter, I just have to say, my disappointment in all that is tied back to the fact that we know every year, I know every year, I don't even work in the field, I know every single year that we're gonna need an emergency shelter. There was no excuse, none, regardless or whatever, there was no excuse that they were to announce, Humankind was to announce that they weren't going to open the emergency shelter, and everybody had to act in a vacuum to try to find some place quickly to open as an emergency shelter. And then when it came down to it, they temporarily opened the emergency shelter that they did have open, which I'm dumbfounded about.
well, they opened that because the other one wasn't ready to go and we needed to get people.
I understand
in for
that.
that early.
I
limit,
understand
yeah.
that, but then why couldn't it have, I mean, if it was, they were able to.
Because
open it.
they're limited. Like, they're limited compared to where they were last year even. I
Well,
think it's,
they must not be too limited, because they're buying up properties over around in that area and tearing them down.
well, the property that you're talking about did get limited by the fire marshal. So it would not have been able to sustain 180 that they had in there last year. They were capped at 120.
I get that.
Yeah.
But to not open it, to say we're not gonna open it to serve the 120 anyways.
Yeah, well, you got, and another thing with the new location, you gotta marshal your resources. We're not capable of having both at the same.
They're not, but anyways, and we're gonna spend between the city and then what 800,000, 900,000? What
Are you,
was-
the city's part in it is about 700,000. Are you
Okay.
talking the city's part?
What's, is the city's part 700?
No, because the county came in with 200,000 and I can't remember off the top of my head the amount that humankind put into it. So the city share of it, which we are going through our ARPA, we had a segment of it designated for dealing with the homeless individuals, that issue. So that's where that's coming from, is from the ARPA part. So it's not coming from general fund, but it is funding that we do have set aside to deal with this issue.
But there's gonna be a total between all of the entities. They're gonna spend what? Almost $1 million
Something
for that
shy
homeless
of there, but
shelter
yeah.
for 6
Yeah,
months?
yeah.
Okay. George?
Yeah, the bullets out of the gun and all these people that left heard me say that I had sent Mike an email. And I thought he watches Nextdoor, but I guess he's got a pretty full plate, so he can't look at Facebook and Nextdoor and everything. So that dog thing has been on Nextdoor since this summer, and I thought it had got resolved, but it hadn't. So, but I've talked with her while we've been here, and I've sent him the phone number for her, and he's going to get the address and stuff. I'm 100% confident he's going to take care of it. I know a few of these people, and I'll tell them that I thought I'd tell, but I did send him an email about a stretch from Clifton to George Washington Boulevard on Skinner. I almost get in accidents trying to dodge the potholes. And so I called them up and they filled 30 potholes from the Station 11 to Clifton, which isn't a very, it's block and a half. And they filled, I counted the new black hot top. So 268, 4060, get your pothole done within 2 days.
We do a really good job as far as filling potholes. So we don't fill them unless they're reported. If you see them, report it. Like George says, usually within 2 days, we get them filled.
Sometimes 12 hours.
Yeah, sometimes that day.
Okay,
I have a different question. I've been permanently banned from Nextdoor. Anybody know the administrator that could change that?
I know.
Yeah, someone was complaining about they dumped trash, there's trash all over the park, and I said, well, didn't you pick it up? And they thought I said something bad and they banned me.
And who was you abandoned from, or?
No, they were just continually grumbling about trash, and I said, pick it up
on Nextdoor,
on Nextdoor.
social
Yeah.
media. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
But anyone can say something, you know, I'm all about that. I'm really a good guy most of the time, huh?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Mike got
Opposed, same sign.
banned from Nextdoor.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a great night.